Hey, welcome back to Planet Zoo, welcome back to Wildlands, welcome back to the channel, welcome back in general. Today, we are going to fulfill a promise I made a couple of episodes back, and we're not going to finish off the riverbanks area because that would involve finishing an area, and we don't do that with Planet Zoo, we all know this. So instead, we're going to jump on over to our Amazon rainforest, and we're going to begin its revamp, as I mentioned, when I decided to delete half the zoo. As you can hopefully hear, I have taken a week off, I have got over my cold, I am back to my dulcet tones, and we can jump on straight in to getting some work done. Okay, so this could have been a very long video. I think I've managed to cut it down just enough where we can get the gist of what I'm doing. But considering I'm not rebuilding an entire building, it still took a hell of a lot of time to make. First off, we're going to clear our animals out. Now, pretty much every animal in our South American section is going to be getting some form of new home. Some really big, some not quite as big. But yeah, so we've took everybody out and we're just going to start off by pretty much ripping the old internals apart. And you may remember that this building actually houses quite a few animals. Today is phase 1, where we're going to be working on the Amazonian giant otter and also some of the spectacle caiman. We are going to be keeping the spectacle caiman. We're also going to be keeping the dwarf caiman. We'll eventually bring back our pantanal animals, our capybara, the tapir and the capuchins. However, for now, we are just focusing on the main building, the main rainforest habitat that's built within. What we're essentially doing here is combining what used to be 3 habitats into one big one for our giant Amazonian otters. So as you can see in the background, we are removing the rocks, the plants, we're flattening out the landscaping, and then we're going to have a mad rush round and close all of the doors. I'm also going to be revamping a bit of the backstage area, and you'll see a little bit of that very shortly, where essentially this is now only going to be serving the giant otters and to some degree whatever we end up doing outside. Speaking of outside, we are going to be changing around some of these habitats. We will be keeping our pantanal sort of rocky mountain area, but we're going to end up building a building behind it that's going to house our tapir, probably bringing in the anteater and a couple of other animals. That's for a future episode. So for now, we're going to move our capuchin bridge over to another area where we will end up bringing in our capuchin monkeys. For now, they're going into off-show. They're going to be hidden. We will get round to them. It's just going to take a while. Now, my plans for this building kind of are much bigger than we originally made it. And I think at the time, I kind of bit off a little bit more than I could chew. I had this big idea that I wanted to make this inside, and that looked great. And then everything else around it was like, I don't know what to do. So I've actually taken some time and really thought about it. So we actually have some sketches and some designs that we're going to follow. With the main destruction complete, we've moved inside to the backstage area, and as you can see, I have rejigged the cages. I've given them a lick of spray paint to make them a nice dark grey colour. I'm going to bring some lighting in, which we didn't have originally, and that's going to give us a wonderful backstage now, just for our, for now, Amazonian giant otters. Now, this episode is going to be with you just in time for the Zookeeper Pack announcement. We've only got a couple of days after this video comes out to go, essentially, before we have the pack in our hands. Normally, I would build a brand new mini zoo to showcase off the animals of the pack. However, this pack is not the most themed. It's the Zookeeper Pack with a collection of animals that apparently were on everybody's wish list. Frontier. But what I will be doing is I have had a little side project. I've been keeping a secret from you all, and I've had a little side zoo project in mind for a while now, and ironically, some of the animals in this pack are very suited to it. So keep your eyes out next week with the launching of the new pack. We will be starting a little mini zoo that is probably going to be a little bit bigger than our normal download content pack zoos. It is a sandbox zoo, but I am very excited to get that underway. I've already started building it in the background, and I'm loving how it's looking. So can't wait to show you all of that. We're not going to disappear from Wildlands though. It just means we're going to take a little short break just while we get that all sorted. Back to the video then. As you can see in the background, we have pulled our faux tree mud walls out just to line up some areas. So we've got a couple of different height differences throughout the habitat. And then we're going to cap those off with some tropical rock and then eventually some mossy rock. This just gives us a wonderful little riverbank area. Now the idea is now, because this is one habitat, you're going to be seeing it from 3 directions. You've got the 2 lower directions where you'll be able to see the otter swimming all the way around, and then you've got the raised walkway down that one side, which allows the guests to see down into the habitat. Eventually, the plan is, just above in the big wonderful rock wall that makes up our central column, There will also be a restaurant that you can sit and look down into from above as well. That is part of the renovation of this area. It's something I wanted to do originally. You may remember we left a walkway with a couple of barriers just off to the side waiting to be connected up. And I think we're probably going to go ahead and get all that sorted as part of our renovation in this area. I will also eventually be building our Jaguar a wonderful big brand new house, a whole new building with a whole new area, maybe squeezing a sloth in, we'll see. But there's plans, there's certainly plans. How long it takes to get to those plans is a different thing, but there's definitely plans. Now, I'm being a little bit more tactful this time. We're not going to go too crazy with the strangler roots as we established in the very first time that we built this habitat. The strangler roots completely destroy the traversable area. So we're going to use them sort of restricted to these riverbanky setups where the otters are not going to go anyway. So we could go really crazy with them there, but then everywhere else is going to be quite plain. Now, the otters themselves, with this being franchise, have quite a high requirement for a large amount of grass. And we're going to tackle that nice and early by getting all of our terrain painting done before we start putting things down. Now, as you've seen me do this 1,000,001 times, we're essentially building up those layers, building up those colour layers on a 20% brush, just a mixture of soil and sand and dirt, and then we're going to put the grass on the top just to bulk it out. And luckily, because this habitat is fairly compact and you're looking at it quite close, the grass will generally always be visible, which is great because normally it's really hard to get it to stay in the picture. Now, as I was putting it back together, I decided we need a bit more of a centralised tree. And we've got a lot of these big tall trees, but nothing in the sort of middle ground. So we're going to bring in this giant tamarind, which is going to add a nice bit of leaf cover down the middle. And then we're also going to go around and start putting in some bushes to cover in some gaps and really just bulk out each of the bottom of the trees. On the corner here, we're going to put in a coastal mangrove. This is just to add, again, another feature point. The idea is you shouldn't really be able to see the whole habitat from one point. What I want to do is encourage people to move around and look at it from different angles and see different things. And we're going to achieve that with the planting. We want it to look really lush, but equally we are still short on space. So we don't want to put plants absolutely everywhere, because otherwise we'll have the same problem we had before, where the animals just weren't happy. So this time we're kind of keeping the planting just to the areas where we've got these big trees coming out the ground, just where we've got our rocks, where the animals are not really going to go anyway. And then we'll have these nice big open areas in between, but the idea is we've covered everything over. You'll likely notice as we go around that I have heavily used these basket ferns. They are vastly becoming one of my prized plants. You can push them into trees, push them into logs, push them into rocks, and they pop out with these wonderful little spindly bits of fern. They are great. They don't shrink as you go further away, so you can make these nice big bundles of ferns. Heavily recommend them. Use them in your zoos. They're brilliant. Those and the hostas, brilliant plants. Now, those fairly astute among you will notice we did not do our normal lead-in at the start of today's video, and that's because I decided that really I want to give you a chance to get some value out of the video before I come along begging you for a like and a subscription. However, if you have enjoyed any part of this video so far, please tippy tap the like button down below. And if you're not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see all of the wonderful things coming out. We've got Plate Zoo, we've got Plate Coaster. I've got a whole host of games that I've been recording that I can't wait to start doing videos on. And I would love to have you along for the ride. If you want to help us out, help the channel out, and get more of our videos, don't forget to tippy tap that subscribe button down below. Now, as we come to the end of our planting here, you'll have seen me got one of the Amazonian logs finally situated in, and I'm also putting in a couple of colourful plants just to catch your eye as you go around. We're going to jump over to speckling some rocks about, and we're going to use these basically just to break up any of the straight lines. So anywhere those tropical rocks meet the ground and you've got this really straight line, we're going to throw a rock, and it just adds this wonderful little bumpiness and a little bit more naturalness. And I really like this. I've got to start doing this more often. It's a more finer level of detail, and I think it really works. Now, at this point, the sort of riverbanky beach area was looking a little bit empty. So what I thought we'd do is we do a little clump of rocks. And you've seen me do this in the past, where we essentially get loads of big rocks and just poke the tips out the ground into a little area. And that's all we're going to do here. Just a mixture of tropical rocks and some mossy rocks. I love the dynamic moss rocks. I much prefer those over the ones where they're just always green. Get some wonderful little textures on them. But essentially all we're doing, just grabbing different shapes, rotating them, lifting them up, poking them out the ground, pushing them back in the ground, and eventually we end up with a nice clump of stone. And then we're going to go a little bit crazy with these leaves. Now I, in a fever dream, seem to remember these being an absolute pain and stopping traversable area. So I was at this stage being a little bit cautious. I didn't want to just ruin the whole habitat. What I actually did later on was checked, and turns out they don't. So it might just be the autumn leaves that do, but as a result, we're going to use them everywhere. With those laid down, it was time to double check, and I would encourage all of you when you're building your habitats to double check your animals' happiness before you start doing any of the major detail work. Even at the point we're at now is a little bit further along in case we did have to rip it all back and start again. But as you can see here, the little guy is absolutely loving it. He's got more than enough water, more than enough land. Had to double check, but I did go down and just spread all of that space out just to be sure down the bottom so he's got a bigger area to swim. And yeah, he can swim all the way around, which is a great mission accomplished. With that all done, it's time to start on the little finer details. So we're going to use these bedalias, which are great alternatives to nettles. Again, with the new requirements that Planet Zoo have introduced, which make the animals very unhappy if they don't have the right plants. It means I can't just spam buffalo grass and nettles everywhere. So the bedalias are going to come in as a little bit of a alternative in areas where we can't use the nettles. We're just going to poke these into little holes. We're just going to fill up all the gaps. Just a little bit more detail. Most people will never see this, especially because you're too low. But I like, because I know it's there, and I think it looks great in the cinematics, and you'll see that in a moment. I also dotted around a couple of custom plants. These are just basically combinations of the same plant in different shapes, pushed together, rosed up, put together, and making a much bigger variant of the plants. I do find the plants in Planet Zoo a little bit understated, a little bit small. They don't look like something that's been growing for a long while, so I like to make little combinations of them. I think it works a bit better. For the backstage, we're going to pop down some bedding. I've popped down a mud pit, and I'm going to use these jetty planks just to surround the mud pit. And I had this idea, and I don't know whether it works. Let me know in the comments if you think it does, as you'll see it in a second, of having this area that essentially they could automate to a degree to keep the otters backstage and indoor area, so to speak, wet and suitable for them. So we're going to bring in the sprinkler that we've grabbed from outside and attach a water jet to it. So essentially there is a remote hose pipe, if you will, or a sprayer that just keeps this mud pit soaking, and they can turn that on and off just to fill it up. And I thought it looked cool. I thought it was a good idea. To finish off with the waterfall, we've taken away the two capybara tap shower things that were there before, and we're just going to bring in some of the waterfall animations. I like the top waterfall animation more than the bottom. I find that makes the splashing look a little bit more natural. So we're going to pop a couple of them down, and then we have got a little splash bit in the water as well, just double checking that it doesn't go through the wall. To finish up on some of the planting, we're going to come in with these wonderful periwinkle plants. We've been over this before, but if you're not using these, you are missing out. The two different ones, the nice sagey green and then the really rich green, mix them together. They're the perfect pondweed algae substitute. They sit on top of the surface, they can be swam through, so the animals look amazing as they swim through them. Use them everywhere. They're brilliant. Underwater, we're going to go with the hydrillas because these are, again, brilliant plants for underwater. You can flip them on their head and they look like brown algae. You can keep them this way up and they look like green algae. They're a very useful plant. And we're just going to highlight them with a bit of eelgrass because the bottom of the water is so visible in this habitat because it's where the guests stand. We kind of want the bottom to be nice and well planted. A little adjustment to the lilies. I wasn't happy that they didn't have any roots or anything dropping down from below them. So what I've done is I've merged one of the normal lilies into the center, lined the plants up so they're not over clipping each other. But then when you look underwater, you've got these dangly roots coming down from the center of the lily. I think it just adds a bit more shape to it. It's probably completely wrong, and I'm sure there's someone will tell me, but I like how it looked, and it felt like it'd work. And a lot of this rebuild is very much, we'll give it a go, see if it works. As I mentioned at the start, we've also done a little bit of touching up for the spectacle caiman. And all we're doing here is really just bulking up on the plants. I think when I built this habitat originally, it wasn't, must have been flagging for time because I didn't really do too much with the planting. So all I've done is I've just gone around, put in some more hosta, put in some of the vidalias, just added a couple of extra green bits to some blank areas, put some vines on the glass, and then on both habitats, I finally got some some education boards. There we go. Finally got some education boards implemented. Not got any custom education boards yet, that's coming. But hey, it's taken me this long to come back here and actually get this fixed up. So, you know, I clearly am not good with timekeeping. That one is very much evident. So don't expect too much, but they'll come. And with that, I think we're about done. Let's jump on in and see how it looks, shall we? Now today's video was never going to accomplish a completely new build, and that wasn't really the aim. The aim was to bring in a habitat that really worked for the giant otters, gave them the space they needed, looked a lot more impressive, looked more like what I had in mind when I originally built the building, and I'm happy with it, and I think that is all that counts, right? But yeah, no, it looks great, and they've now got the space. They can swim all the way around. We've got this wonderful foresty feel. The backstage area is a lot more open. What we found with the last time was that the otters would get stuck in the backstage area and they'd just stay in there and never come out, whereas now they're out, they're swimming around, they're using it. It's great, it's brilliant. The spectacle caiman, they're back in their habitat. Obviously, again, not changed too much, but it was nice just to go back and give that a little bit of a revamp. Phase 2, we're going to bring back the dwarf caiman. We're going to move the jaguar out. We're going to build our restaurant, and we're going to look at getting our Pantanal area done. That may be a couple of weeks, however. As I say, we're going to be jumping into a brand new zoo next week for the download pack and beyond. I can't wait to share that one with you. Pop your comments as to what you think down in the comments below. Tippy tap the like button if you've enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.